Title: The Band of Five. Setting: it's 1863, in the heat of the American Civil War. But while soldiers fight for the Union or the Confederacy, a different kind of battle rages in the desolate plains of the western frontier. This is a time when outlaws, bounty hunters, and vigilantes walk the line between justice and chaos. In this turmoil, five shooters, whose skills cannot be matched, are drawn together by a mysterious contract to do the impossible: rob the most heavily guarded Confederate gold transport crossing through Missouri. The story. The sun hung low over the plains of Missouri, casting a golden hue over the sparse landscape. The faint sound of galloping hooves echoed in the distance, announcing the arrival of five figures. These weren't ordinary men. Each one of them had a story carved into the dusty roads and small-town saloons of the West. But today, their stories converged, bound by a contract that could reshape the course of the war and their lives. Rider by rider, they met under the shade of an old oak tree, a lone marker on the horizon. A ragtag band, to be sure, but anyone who knew their names would be wise to keep their distance. Each man had a skill so sharp it could cut the air itself. Mad, Colton, the eagle-eyed sniper. Jack sat on his horse, his rifle always within arm's reach. He had eyes that could spot a rabbit from a mile away and a steady hand that could take it down. A Union deserter, he had no love for the North or the South, but gold, that was something he could get behind. His gaze flicked between the other men. "You sure this transport is worth it?" Jack asked, breaking the silence. 2. Samuel the Ghost, Blackwater, the quick draw. Next to him was Samuel, known as the Ghost for his uncanny ability to disappear in a blink. With a hand faster than the wind, no man could match his draw. His past was a mystery, wrapped in whispered rumors about old vendettas and blood debts. "If the money's right, it's worth it," Samuel replied, adjusting the wide-brimmed hat that cast a shadow over his cold, calculating eyes. "We ain't just after gold. There's something bigger at play here." 3. Abigail Ace Monroe, the gambler gunslinger. Abigail's presence was commanding. She wasn't just one of the best card players on the circuit, she was one of the best shots in the West. Her reputation came not from how she played the cards, but how she handled a gun when things went south at the table. Dressed in a dark red duster, her confidence was matched only by her deadliness. She flipped a silver coin into the air and caught it. "Fortune favors the bold, boys," she said with a smirk. "And I'd say we've got just the right kind of bold to pull this off." 4. Doc Carter, the tactician and explosives expert. Elias, once a field surgeon, had swapped saving lives for taking them. He'd become an explosives expert, knowing how to rig dynamite and nitroglycerin to perfection. His intellect set him apart from the rest, always 2 steps ahead in any fight. His medical skills were still useful, just in a different way now. "The transport's guarded like Fort Knox," Elias said as he carefully inspected a bundle of dynamite. "We don't just need to fight our way in, we need to blow the thing open and make sure we don't get caught doing it." 5. Preacher Jeremiah Hawkins, the reluctant vigilante. Riding slightly behind the group was Jeremiah, known as Preacher. Once a man of God, he had turned to a life of vigilante justice after his family was slaughtered by Confederate soldiers. Though his faith had faltered, his skill with a shotgun was divinely accurate. "There's more than just money here," Jeremiah said quietly, his voice grave. "We do this job and we could shift the tide of the war. This gold is meant to fund something much darker." The mission. The 5 shooters had been brought together by a shadowy figure known only as the banker. He was a rich man with ties to both sides of the war, but his allegiance was to money, not politics. The banker had discovered that a Confederate gold transport was heading north from Texas, loaded with millions in bars that were to fund a secret campaign. But this wasn't just any transport. It was protected by some of the deadliest soldiers the South had to offer, along with state-of-the-art defenses. The gold had to be intercepted and stolen without leaving a trace. The banker's instructions were clear: take the gold and leave no witnesses. The heist. As night fell, the 5 shooters moved in under the cover of darkness. The transport caravan was camped near the riverbank, surrounded by wagons and armed men. Lantern light flickered across the camp, giving the shooters their first glimpse of what they were up against. Jack took position on a nearby ridge, his rifle resting comfortably on a rock as he scanned the camp through his scope. "I've got eyes on the targets," he whispered. "Too many for a clean job." Elias crouched behind him, inspecting the terrain. "That's where I come in," he said, planting sticks of dynamite in the dirt. "When I light this up, you'll have about 10 seconds to hit 'em hard." Samuel and Abigail waited near the edge of the camp, ready for the signal. Samuel's fingers hovered near his holsters, his body coiled like a snake, ready to strike. Abigail twirled her revolver with the practiced ease of a master. Preacher was the last to join them. He knelt, muttering a prayer under his breath. "God forgive us," he whispered before cocking his shotgun. The dynamite exploded, tearing through the night like thunder. In the chaos that followed, Jack's rifle cracked, taking out guards with pinpoint accuracy. Samuel darted through the smoke, his guns flashing like lightning, while Abigail's shots rang out in rapid succession, each one finding its mark. Elias directed the flow of the battle, his mind sharp as a blade, while Preacher waded through the carnage, his shotgun roaring with righteous fury. The Confederate guards never stood a chance. Within minutes, the camp was silent, save for the crackling of burning wagons and the distant cries of the wounded. The gold was theirs. As they loaded the stolen gold into their saddlebags, the 5 shooters stood in the flickering light of the dying fires. They were silent for a moment, knowing this was only the beginning. The war wasn't over, not for them, and certainly not for the gold they now possessed. Each of them had their reasons for joining this mission, and each had unfinished business. But for now, they rode together. To be continued next